So, I've decided to start this more casual video diary series, mainly as a means to air some thoughts I have on the cool games I've been playing that I don't have a more formal project within which to house. To get us started, here's everything I played in April. Having previously played and enjoyed the brain-teasing output of Owlskip Games, even featuring some of their titles in videos on this channel, grabbing up their latest offering on day one was a no-brainer for me, and I'm happy to say it does not disappoint. The Ratline continues the team's commitment to uncompromised investigational challenges. The clues are all there, but the logic that ties them together is all up to you. No guiding hand, only the vague acknowledgement when you haven't got something quite right. Tasked with identifying the assumed names, locations, and recent pictures of Nazis hiding in exile, you will peruse documents, photos, and information gleaned from phone calls and audio recordings, pieces of a narrative that fit together in unusual ways to draw out this exceptionally interesting tale of murder, mistrust, and miscarriages of justice. The story has the juice for sure, a biting political commentary and a means of exploring all the ways in which the crimes of the past still hold a vice-like grip on the outcomes of the present. It being set in the 70s gives it a big shot of these Cold War espionage thriller vibes too. Dark, rainy days, smooth jazz on the radio, and a fat wad of documents through which you will eventually uncover a breach in the defenses of these war criminals' perfect plans for obfuscation. The user interface can sometimes be a bit cumbersome, especially when you're juggling multiple transcripts, a Rolodex of numbers, and photos in quick succession, and the game has a rather cheeky habit of occasionally making you search back through previous cases to find the information you need for the current one, something I think could have been signposted a little better from the beginning, but rather miraculously I almost never resorted to my own note-taking in order to figure out what I needed. What's presented is broad enough to hide the truth, but still easily digestible and relatively simple to pass. The flavor text is all really interesting too, which means it's no great chore to reread the same passages over and over until you figure out what you actually need from them. Overall though, I think this game was maybe a little bit too smart for my level of deductive prowess. It's considerably more taxing an endeavour than Owlskip's previous games like Echo Beach and Riley and Rochelle. I did have to make use of its generous hint system a fair few times throughout, but not all the time. And those aha moments were all the more satisfying for being able to reach them by my own accord. If you're a fan of this genre and looking for a fiendish puzzle box to pick at over the course of several evenings, I don't think you can go wrong here. The next game I played is Holm, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not quite sure why I picked this one up, but I'm kind of glad I did. From screenshots alone, it looked like a nice simple adventure game in which you play a frog gathering ingredients to partake in some tetranomical mixology back at the pub you're trying to restore. Slice of life sim stuff, low stakes, some narrative hooks, and a nice gameplay loop. A palate cleanser to enjoy between some of the heavier, more taxing games I've been playing recently. While technically this is all true, I think it would also be a misnomer to represent the game as just this loop, because what I found within Holm was not the game I thought it was going to be. Closer to a mix of visual novel and puzzle game, the experience is far more story-heavy than I was anticipating, exploring familial estrangement, conspiracy, and some quite oddly written eldritch undertones. It's a fascinating thing to engage with. I don't know if I'd call it great, necessarily. It rushes through its early stages a bit too quickly. You never quite get settled into a rhythm with its world or the cast that inhabit it, and I completed the whole thing in just over an hour and a half. I wonder if this was a budgetary constraint thing, or whether the developer simply wanted to respect the player's time. I would have happily played a version of this that was twice as long and invested more time at the beginning in character building, but I don't feel like I was shortchanged by what I found here. The cocktails minigame is a bit daft, bordering on frustrating as its tetrominos have an additional layer of physics that require a spot of dumb luck on top of the pinpoint precision needed to fulfill your orders. I don't really know what it brings to the experience, especially given how brief everything else is. It is, however, interesting enough for me to recommend to anyone curious about something that doesn't quite do what it says on the tin, and the underlying mystery that runs throughout leads you to some really interesting places. It's a cool little game, definitely worth the look. I have a bit of a soft spot for this particular brand of 2D on 3D side-scrolling platformer, but I've always found myself nervous going into a new one, asking myself whether its controls are tight enough, its pace swift enough, and whether it can drip-feed new ideas with enough regularity to ensure a thrilling time throughout. Playdead's Inside nailed all this 10 years ago, and has seen a number of good but not great contenders to the throne since. Nothing that quite matches that level of aplomb or veneration. Nothing that has been so carefully tuned. Darwin's Paradox, while not quite reaching the dizzying heights of what the genre can offer, still manages to impress. I had a really bloody good time with this. A cheerful, delightfully cartoonish experience in which you play a nervous cephalopod navigating a dystopian, extraterrestrially infested landscape. A great mix of navigation, platforming, stealth and puzzle solving, all painted within this really wonderfully realised world. An aesthetic throwback to titles like Stubbs the Zombie and Destroy All Humans, with some touches of Double Fine in there for good measure. Great character design. Darwin is beautifully animated, capturing that sense of panic and wonder of being the proverbial fish out of water, well, octopus out of water, and he is joined by a cast of oddball enemies whose bizarre mannerisms betray who they really are almost immediately. Quite a fiendish game in places, requiring precision platforming and a good sense of timing to overcome some of these challenges, and while those sections were certainly a thrill to overcome, there were times I found myself banging my head against what the game required of me. Victory is fleeting, and the loading screen back to the previous checkpoint can quickly start to feel like an eternity. It's certainly an experience that suffers if you are easily tilted and impatient, requiring a steady hand and an understanding of the physics that govern our little octopus friend. Movement is very specific depending on whether you are on land or in water. You stick to walls a lot. Sometimes that's a saving grace, other times it's a death sentence. The window between hazards is razor thin, and sometimes that window moves right at the last second. I wouldn't say this is a particularly unresponsive game though. In fact, with all the iterations of this genre I've played over the years, Darwin's Paradox is probably one of the better for having the character do what the buttons are telling them to do. But considering some of the tight margins for survival present throughout the game, there were moments where I found myself thinking, I really wish this handled a bit more like Super Meat Boy. I think, however, that the ever so slightly sluggish movement and stickiness of our eight-legged protagonist has been factored into what is expected of him, and even if and when you fall short of navigating a lethal obstacle course, there's a bit of masochistic joy to be found in how cartoonishly Darwin pops, disintegrates and splats, even if those animations do go on about a second too long. It's a game where the developers have thought a lot about the impact of animation on the experience, but there's still enough mechanical complexity and variation in gameplay to overcome that initial concern that this would be little more than an elaborate interactive movie. And for every one of my admittedly minor irks, those moments were inevitably followed up by an inventive, fun sequence that restored my faith in the project as a whole. It really is a joy to discover exactly what is round the corner, moving from factories to secret facilities to underwater caverns, each with their own tone, design and share of horrors to overcome. You have quieter moments between the bombast and trials. Not everything is a constant battle of fight or flight, and that, I think, is what keeps the game's pace so tight. There's also a surprising amount of readability of the interactable objects and surfaces in the game, considering how elaborate some of the backgrounds become. To have a timing-based platforming challenge still hold focus while things are exploding and crashing around you, without resorting to tested design tropes like yellow paint or suggestive glints, it's all predicated on a lot of really smart artistic decisions, and it all works really well. This is a really fun experience, a great companion for a rainy weekend, and something I can heartily recommend. Derelict Star is a peculiar game to talk about because on paper it seems like such a straightforward experience, and yet it's one of those instances where what it is less important than how it feels. Ostensibly an open-ended puzzle platformer, you explore abandoned space stations in search of power cells to aid you in making your way home. Each space is loaded with hazards, gaps, and other environmental oddities to get in the way of progress, a maze-like quality to proceedings that feels almost like a Zelda dungeon in design. It's all impressive in itself, a muted, minimal sequence of challenges that can be tackled in a non-linear fashion, providing any number of trials and tribulations that tax not only your reflexes but your spatial reasoning too. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of experiences that look and sound like this, so I'm certain you're asking what's so bloody special about this one. Derelict Star doesn't behave like a normal platformer. It's an experience about momentum in sort of the opposite way to what you'd expect. In design, it is anathema to flow. You need to be incredibly precise in your actions, not only in jumping and hovering, but also how much of a run-up you require to reach the elevation you need. The way you carry yourself across the hundreds of bespoke challenges that make up this game portrays a fundamental weight to the player character that must be considered at any given point. Too little movement and you're stuck hopping churlishly on the spot or careening into the abyss. Too much speed, however, can equally spell disaster for your starfaring expedition. It's a Goldilocks school of design, the challenge not only being how you read the environment and what it expects of you, but also how you navigate the gravity of your own body. You and the space around you interact in surprisingly nuanced ways, with some of these trials being quite tricky to get your head around as you have to consider distance, speed, elevation, drop, and positioning all at the same time. A constantly evolving set of parameters that are incredibly satisfying to make sense of. This is not even factoring in how the environment changes the very nature of how you behave. A brilliant duality of design that presents obstacles and opportunity in equal measure. Restraint as emancipation is a core ludic idea that has always excited me, and already, even in the infant stages of my time with this game, I see impressive pieces of design throughout. This is way more intricate than it first seems. I can see immediately why N+ co-creator Reagan Burns has been banging the drum so ferociously about this game on my Blue Sky feed. It is, to this genre, as exciting to me as titles like Leap Year and Celeste. Pure alchemy, built from such humble bones but showcasing just how much you can grow from a simple core idea. A true sleeper hit, if ever I saw one. Aether Iron is a fascinating Frankenstein of a game, a dialogue-heavy RPG adventure that is one part Disco Elysium, one part Into the Breach, with, of all things, touches of Bioshock Infinite in the mix. It's a cool game, immediately setting up a mystery that mixes social conflict with a pending environmental disaster. You play a quippy smuggler helping a naive young scientist escape her would-be captors, in turn exploring the dense maze that is this airborne municipal fortress and uncovering the dark consequences of decades of industrial achievement along the way. Aether Iron's sources of inspiration are pretty obvious, but it retains a strong sense of identity independent of this. Social stratas are bold and unsubtle, an upper class enjoying clean air and sunshine above the clouds, while the imaginatively named lowers exist in a perpetual state of unrest. Districts captured in the thrall of fascist micro-militias that claim to act in their residents' interests but do anything but. A great deal of thought has gone into the world within which this adventure inhabits, while still avoiding the pitfalls of just throwing lore-dense walls of text at you at any given opportunity. The flavor text is short, sharp, and more often than not, strangely poetic. Conversations flow well, with information delivered in digestible chunks. The writing style in general is really solid. Delivered well by the voice cast, it inhabits that peculiar rhythmic structure of detective noir, a dangerous beauty found in all observations, and a nervous introspection drawn from every encounter. Combat is fine. Vehicular clashes that are one part tactics, one part brute force. It's got this nice illusion of momentum to it due to the environment scrolling past at pace, even though this is a turn-based system. Your decisions are made on the basis of location, proximity, and environmental cues, not just what benefits you in the moment, but what is to come in the next round. A careful hand can steer your opponents into hazards, letting the world around you do the work while you focus on staying safe, but you can easily fall afoul of those same systems if you're not careful. It's quite easy for things to go sideways, so that instinct to just load up on firepower and go to town will not guarantee you victory alone. There's vehicle customization in the mix too, with the ability to upgrade parts, weapons, and armor while considering your weight limit, but I have to be honest, these are not the parts of the game that I keep coming back for. It's no bad thing necessarily. Combat is far from obtrusive and also, crucially, not the only trick the game has up its sleeve. It behaves more like contemporary RPGs, the ones that are essentially visual novels with a few dice rolls mixed in, than the more traditional fighting-focused affairs, and it's a nice way to mix things up from time to time. It is the story, the world, and the characters, however, that are what intrigue me the most about Aether Iron. Thankfully, the qualities found here are a real strength of the work. I haven't quite finished this one yet, although a cursory search online suggests that you can reach a conclusion within around 15 hours or so. It's quite a sprawling effort, with a fair few side missions and random encounters that flesh out the world and those characters' backstories. Still, I wanted to give it at least some flowers, as I think a lot of you will get on really well with what it's doing, and I am conscious of the massive shadow that Zero Parades for Dead Spies is going to cast over this genre when it releases in a few weeks. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is some unloved masterpiece. I haven't had enough time with it to solidify my thoughts just yet, but there is something about it, and that might be enough to give it at least a little bit of your time. Thank you for watching. If you like my work on the channel, you can now support me on Patreon, which you can join either as a paid or free member to enjoy some additional behind-the-scenes posts, occasional rambling thoughts, and highlighting of other creators. Nothing is paywalled, but any support is greatly appreciated. I'll see you in the next video.